Hello there. Hi everyone, I'm back. I was gone for a week on a little brief respite / vacation, and it was very nice, but I am very excited to be back here today because I have purchased a thing that I think is very interesting, and I am excited to try it out here with you. Also, pay no heed to the gaping absence of something in the background. It will be back next week. It will be new and improved, and I am very excited about it, but for now we will not fret over the lack of large machine that is usually there. I'm just full of sentences today. Anyways, let me show you what I have procured for us to look at, because it's very interesting. This is the Cafilano Classic, and I found it when I was doing my, at this point, weekly scouring of the internet for interesting, just coffee-related things. This is a coffee travel mug, but it is also so much more. It is advertised to be kind of an all-in-one system, and it costs about $55 USD, although it's like $65 on Amazon. It's significantly marked up, but if you go to their website, it is $55, and included is a pour-over kettle, if you will. Included is a grinder, a filter, and also your coffee drinking mug. Lots of things. The question, however, is, are those things good? Do those things work? How is the coffee? So let's just open this up. Now, I could read the instructions right now. That seems a little bit boring though, so I say we just open this up, dig into it, and then we will come back to these when we actually need them, when I am completely and utterly lost at what I'm looking at. I imagine this comes off. Well, that's a good seal. So we have a lid for some purpose. The next piece we have is what I'm understanding to be our pour over kettle. How it works is that we're actually gonna end up turning it this way. So opposite how you pull it off the top. Then you have this little spout right here. If you can even see it, that is a spout indeed, and that's where our water is gonna come out. Next up, we have our hand grinder portion. You will take the little handle, turn it out, very cute, felt very dainty doing that. And then like any other hand burr grinder, you will turn it, and you also have some adjustable notches so you can change your grind size, which is nice, and it's a hand grinder. It looks like pretty much any other hand grinder you would buy. Then moving on, we have our filter. So this is just a mesh metal filter. There is no need for a paper filter to be inserted into this. The idea is you just grind into the filter, and then you take the grinder off and you start pouring water, and voila, coffee. And arguably the most boring part of this entire contraption is the coffee mug itself, or the bottom part, which acts as the thermos that your coffee will be brewed into and then ideally consumed from. Now originally when I was getting into this, I thought perhaps this little red lid might be a sealable lid that goes on this. So let's say you'd like to actually take your coffee somewhere after you've finished brewing it, you might be able to like pop this on top, and while it does cover the top of your thermos, it's not a seal at all. Like that's what's gonna happen. Let me go review the instructions just to confirm that I haven't missed anything significant, but I think this seems pretty straightforward. So before we start actually brewing with this, I wanna give a huge thank you to our sponsor.
I wanna give a huge thank you to Ruggable for sponsoring today's video. When I moved recently, I was stuck trying to figure out how to furnish my place in a way that was pretty, but also pet friendly and easy to take care of. That's a high bar, but Ruggable met all of those requirements with their wide array of non-slip rugs. Just slip whatever rug cover you want over the rug pad and you're good to go. Additionally, all of their rugs are machine washable, which means that even though they are spill and stain resistant, if they do get messy, the cleanup is in fact super easy. Ruggable rugs made it incredibly easy for me to decorate and design my space while still giving me the flexibility to switch out the rug covers in the future if I want. Right now I have the Ebsita Sage rug in my living room, but maybe in the future I'll want a different one. It'll be easy to swap out the rug cover for any of the other same-sized rugs I want when that time comes. So if you're interested in getting started with Ruggable and ditching your cold floors, I got you, because you can get 10% off your purchase when you click the link in the description and use code FUNMORGAN10. Thank you again to Ruggable for sponsoring today's video.
Here are our instructions, just in case anyone is curious. Put 15 to 20 grams of whole beans into the hand mill grinder and start grinding slowly. Remove the hand mill grinder, start brewing with the drip kettle, which is this little buddy right here. Remove the filter dripper and enjoy a fresh and tasty cup of coffee. Oh, and I was right, it does say use the cover as a tumbler lid. Now, again, this is not a sealable tumbler lid, but I suppose if you wanted to retain a little bit of your coffee's heat, you could put this on top. Beans. Now, there are two things that this all-in-one brewer doesn't fully encompass. And frankly, I'm not totally sure how it would encompass those things, them being a scale and hot water. Those are two things that I think would be a little bit tricky to build into this, at least at this price point. Putting in the electronics for like a scale that would be at the bottom and then would have some sort of like LED readout would probably up the price of this quite a bit. That being said, for a good cup of coffee, we will want a scale, so you will provide your own scale. Also, this thing does not heat up water. It will will pour the water, but you do need to provide your own heated water. So we'll have to do that as well. Now, when I was initially looking at this, I was trying to think where I would use it. My first thought was camping, because like with most camping coffee, you want your entire system to be like light and portable and easy to carry around and all of that stuff. The other way I think this could be used very easily would be like at an office job where you're at a desk and you have like a kettle in the office. I'm imagining you have a kettle of hot water and you want to do your pour over and you want to be very fancy, but you don't want to be that person who has lugged in their Chemex and their Stag and their everything else into your office. This might be the nice, subtle, like more office appropriate way to have a pour over. Let's reassemble. Let's start grinding. Screw that on. 20 grams of beans in. And then the laborious process of grinding. I'm about halfway through, and I will say there's not too much wobble on this, which is kind of nice. Sometimes when I'm using like my Hario Skirtin, which is the other hand grinder I will occasionally use, when you are grinding, you will frequently get the main carafe of it kind of like wobbling around. It's tricky to hold on, and I'm not experiencing that too much here, which is a plus. You do need to keep like a healthy grip on it though. Okay, grinding is done. That is far too coarse to even think about brewing into, so let me go get some fresh coffee. For anyone curious, this is about the grind size we're at, which is not super acceptable for any brewing method. Well, we will tighten up our grind size quite a bit. That should be a little bit better. Tired. This process really reminds me how out of shape I am, and also how little I like hand grinders. I'm almost there. We've made it through our coffee. Fingers crossed this is the right grind size. I don't want to look. It is! This looks much better. I'll just set this in here, set this to the side. That is a much more acceptable, much more reasonable size. I will note one thing now that I am taking the filter off and looking inside, and that is that we have acquired some grounds in the base of our carafe. Stay. Okay, so if you look so nervous that's gonna fall. If you look inside the thermos container that we're gonna be brewing into, it's not a ton, but you can see ground coffee in the bottom, which I was hoping one would not see. I was hoping this would be a little bit of a tighter seal, but I'm gonna go rinse this very briefly just to make sure we get this out. Okay, the grounds have been removed, but that being said, this is definitely a downside to this thing, is the fact that coffee grinds can fall from the grinder unit into the bottom of your cup, and if you didn't take your filter out, you would have no idea they're down there. Now it's time for our pour over kettle, if you will, in quotations. I'm very curious to see how this will do with the water that I'm about to pour in, which is just off of a boil. This is just hard plastic. There's no like double walling to it. It's just plastic. So question mark if I will burn my hand, but let's see. I've filled it up to just under the little spout line. Now I'm gonna go get our scale because I would like to measure how much water we're adding to our pour over. Put that on, tare that, okay. As I thought, this is getting pretty warm as is. I'm going to try to pick it up and do the entire brew just on its own without any sort of oven mitt or heat protective layer, I suppose. But that being said, I do have barista hands. And by that, I mean I have zero nerve endings left. I just basically hold on to boiling hot metal objects all day. So I'm able to hold this, and even then it's a little bit uncomfortable. So I imagine anyone who's not used to having that much heat applied to their hands or has more sensitive hands would find this very painful. We're getting a little bit of drippage. Okay, all right. That hurts a lot more than I was expecting it to over that period of time. And while it initially started off well, this does drip fairly easily, so I'm gonna continue the brew, but this just seems dangerous to have someone use as a kettle. I'm gonna go see if they mention anything about it in the instructions. Well, I don't see any specific things about the temperature of this plastic when it heats up with hot water. However, there is one warning that says always be cautious while consuming hot drinks / water. Hot liquids can scald the user. Yes, they can. Okay, let's let that just finish draining. And I do wanna mention very briefly what the issue is with this little kettle scenario because I just realized what it is. I really just had one of those like light bulb moments right there. You see we have our spout here on the top. This is where our water is pouring out, and it did a surprisingly nice job of creating like a controlled, just thin stream. So when you're like blooming or you're doing all your swirls, it's really easy to use. But that being said, this spout is so close to the very top of your kettle that even when you put this on, which as I mentioned before, this does not seal it. This is just kind of like a cover so you can easily hang on to it. Your water is gonna be also pouring out the like unsealed edge here when you tip it any more than just like a little bit. Let me demonstrate. So starting off, it's very easy to just like gently turn it and you get your like little stream here. This is nice. This is very easy to use, and honestly, I was surprised at how it functioned. However, as the water begins to drain even lower in the kettle, you have to start tilting it at a much steeper incline to get it to come out this little hole, which is when that starts to happen. This is actually the reason why most gooseneck kettles, and in fact even watering cans, are a great example of having the spout located near to the bottom of the entire kettle body. You're able to pour water very easily, and you can maintain the same incline pretty much the entire time. You don't have to like steepen your incline because your water is leaving the kettle at the base here rather than needing to reach the top like with this one. That being said, our coffee has finished draining, so it's time to consume. Now we have our coffee brewed in here, and it looks a little funny because this container itself holds about 16 ounces of fluid. However, as I mentioned before, our little kettle carafe thing only holds about 270 milliliters of water. This equates to approximately 9 ounces of water, which is only about half of this container. So after all of this work, we're left with only about like this much coffee. Now, there is a reason to this, that being that we have our filter, which is sitting right in here. So the filter, because it's conical, reaches to about here. So we can't obviously be brewing like into our brew, if that makes sense. Like this isn't tea, we're not doing like a steeping sort of scenario. So of course we can't fill this entire thing up. But that being said, once you lift this, it does look a little funny to have it only half full. With full capacity, you can brew coffee enough to serve for 2 people. I don't know if this is 2 people's worth of coffee. Let me pour it out for you. I don't know if this is enough for 2 people. Like it could be in some scenarios. In fact, sometimes I like to just drink 4 ounces of coffee, but in general, I do not think mass advertising this as being 2 people's worth of coffee is necessarily true. You know, the coffee itself is about what you'd expect. It's not bad. It's pretty nice, in fact. I will say that the heat is leaving this pretty quickly. Like this is cooling fairly fast. And it seems strange to me that even though this is built as kind of a to-go thermos, like this is a nice, very solid, like walled thermos, you're not able to seal the top at all. You are able to, of course, put your little red hat back on top of it, but there is like a little escape hole here. So you're not even really retaining all the heat, even with it not being sealed. I think I'd like to do this one more time. I think we should use this in the scenario that it would be probably most frequently used in, which I think, based on everything I have learned and all the reviews I have read, is an office. So let's change scenes. Welcome to my office, or more so known as the dining room table. I'd prefer not to lug in all of my coffee equipment into the office, so I've opted to bring my Caflano today, and I'm gonna make use of the hot water kettle that is boiling in the break room. Because I have no scale here, I have made use of bringing in 20 grams of beans in a tiny bag. Now, to get everything set up. Before I decided that it was time for me to make my cup of coffee, I went into the break room, I fought everyone off, and I got my water started. So that is boiling in there. We will go get it when we need it. This is the part of the process that we hope no one walks by while I'm doing it. I'm not really sure how relaxing of an activity this would be if you're frantically trying to make a pour over in the middle of your workday. This feels more exhausting than it does rejuvenating. Victory, our beans are ground. Now, I must go fetch water from the break room. Water has been acquired. It gets so hot, temperature-wise. It's a little hot. So perhaps if we, oh gosh. Let me go get some napkins from the break room. That seems to work all right if you have like some sort of guard here. I'm telling myself that this is all worth it for a delicious, piping hot cup of pour over coffee at the end of this. I have been brewing this for I think a good about 7 minutes now. So if I was at work, perhaps on like a 10 or like 15-minute break, we are nearing the end of that break. I will put that out there. However, if this is my 30-minute lunch, then maybe this is doable. However, I'm not totally sure if I want to spend 30% of my free time at work brewing myself a cup of coffee like this. Perhaps the coffee pot in the office would be a little bit more beneficial in this moment. Well, I suppose I will just put my filter in there so we're not leaving any water dripping anywhere. All this time later, and with a fair amount of coffee spilled, we are left with 8 to 9 ounces of brewed coffee once more. Did I enjoy my experience with this? There are parts of this that I really like. I love the idea of all-in-one, machines or contraptions that use design to fit all these different pieces together that would usually be quite large on their own. I like how they ended up fitting some sort of kettle thing onto the top of this. I like the idea that they tried to imitate a gooseneck, which worked for the most part, except the fact that it spills a ton of hot water. There are still quite a few flaws when it comes to this. As much as I like the idea of them inserting some sort of kettle-like scenario to this, the fact that it just heats up these sides and is incredibly painful to touch is a major flaw in and of itself. The fact that you still get a ton of hot water spillage from the spout here is a problem, and the fact that when you're grinding your coffee, you're able to have grounds falling to the bottom of your thermos that if you don't check that they're there, you wouldn't know they're there, and then you'd be drinking them and all of that stuff. That's a pretty big problem. So maybe this is not the first thing I would default to if I was looking to make coffee on the go without lugging a bunch of equipment with me. Perhaps I would default to some higher quality instant coffee. Perhaps I would go look at maybe an AeroPress and consider grinding my coffee before I took it with me, or any of those things. However, this, as fun and as cute as it is, I don't know if this is the solution I would be looking for in that sort of scenario. Maybe it is for you though, and if it is, I would love to know where and how you use this. Do you take this camping with you? Do you take it to the office with you? Do you have it in your car somewhere? I would love to know. I think this is a lot of fun. I just don't think it is completely there. I think the execution just needs a little bit more fine tuning. That being said, I hope this has been fun for you. I hope this has been educational in some way, and this is the end of the video. So I am Morgan Drinks Coffee. I am Morgan Drinks Coffee on pretty much everywhere I'm active. I post once a week here, along with posting almost every day on TikTok and Instagram. I hope all of you have a great rest of your day. You can find lots of links, including this thing and all sorts of fun stuff, including fun stuff from Ruggable, down in the description below. I will go finish this cup of coffee as penance for how I brewed it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I will see you all next week.